So thank you all for coming to our NSS North Houston Space Society meeting. We have these once a month, and everybody is welcome to come each month. The plan for today is I have a few opening remarks I want to make. I'll try to keep it to 10 minutes or less. Then we'll have Greg Stanley give us recent space news. There's been a lot happening each month. It's hard to keep up on everything. And then we'll have Yumna present about how she's been taking her enthusiasm for space and using it to inspire other people. After that, we'll have some Q&A, specifically around Umna's presentation. And then after that, we'll open it up for everybody to share their own personal space experiences. Vito wanted to talk a little bit about the cosmos. We also have Adam Hawkins on the line. I didn't give him a warning, but he recently landed a job at Blue Origin, so maybe you could talk a little bit about how that's been. And we have a few other people that might share some things. And if you've attended any other space meetings or been able to watch a rocket launch or seen something astronomical or just have something to talk about, hopefully you can share it with the group. And then we'll try to end promptly at 4 o'clock. The first thing I wanted to mention was there's actually a comet that's visible early in the morning right before the sunrise. It may actually be a little bit too low below the horizon now, but it's called Comet Neowise. And they actually took this picture from the International Space Station right here. And the reason it's called Comet Neowise is because there's actually a spacecraft that's between the sun and the Earth called Neowise that's meant to keep an eye out for near-Earth objects. And it was able to spot this long before it developed a tail back in March 27th of this year. And it's looking out for anything that might hurt the Earth. And you can see this is what Neowise is able to capture in terms of this comet. But comets aren't the only things that we see here on Earth. Asteroids are constantly, turning into meteors whenever they hit the Earth. And just on June 7th, this picture was captured of an meteor entering the Earth's atmosphere. And here is kind of another one from last month of a meteor. This is right over Kansas, so not too far away. And then just to give you, let you see it in slow motion, here's that meteor entering the Earth's atmosphere, getting really hot. You see several kind of explosions. And meteors have been impacting the Earth all the time. In fact, the vast majority of them burn up in the atmosphere. The ones that don't burn up in the atmosphere, most of them land in the ocean. And of the ones that land up on land, you may not be aware of them because they get weathered away, vegetation grows over them and things like that. But if you look at the moon, you have a history of all these meteor impacts because the same types of rocks that are hitting the Earth are also hitting the moon. But unlike the Earth, these meteors are, preserved. And so the moon provides a nice record of the history of all these meteors that are hitting the Earth, and is a constant reminder to us of the constant bombardment that the Earth has. And when will a meteor hit the Earth that will actually affect things? Well, physicist Niels Bohr, who won a Nobel Prize in 1922, said prediction is very difficult, especially if it's about the future. So that's kind of important to keep in mind. And just to give you an idea of how we've actually, how many meteors we've discovered over time, this is an animation of meteors that are asteroids that we knew about since 1999 all the way up to 2018. And as we've developed better and better techniques to find these meteors, and as we've deployed more and more space assets to keep an eye on the environment, you can see we live in a very dynamic and very active place in space. And a lot of these meteors are constantly crossing over the Earth's orbit. And it's not a question of it's not a question on if we're going to have a huge meteor hit the Earth. The question is really when. And these meteors that we've been discovering, or these asteroids that we've been discovering, come in various sizes. Of course, the kilometer big ones, luckily, are rarely rare so far, and they're also the easiest to detect. But a whole bunch that are between 140 meters to 1 kilometer, and then a whole bunch of smaller ones beside that. So these asteroids um, are something that we need to be able to keep an eye on and predict. And that Neowise comet, based upon the orbit that we've observed, only comes around once every 6,000 years. And there are some or asteroids from other star systems that might actually come through our environment just one time. And it's something that we really need to be able to keep an eye on, because the next disaster we have may actually be a meteor instead of a pandemic. And asteroids are sort of nature's way of asking, how is that space program coming along? Because, if the dinosaurs had a space program, maybe they could have detected and deflected the meteor. But meteors and asteroids aren't just an element of risk. There are these things called rare earth metals that are actually found in asteroids and meteors. And the moon may actually be a good source of all of these, which is kind of important to know, because most of the reserves of these types of materials are actually found in China. And because of geopolitical reasons, it may not be always able to access them. So this is one of the things that we should keep in mind as we think about space, is that it's often easy to think of space as being a luxury for us to develop and explore, but there's actually real immediate needs to be able to understand the environment in which the Earth is in, and being able to have space-based assets that allow for us to react in a way that protects the Earth. Now, the National Space Society, of which this is a chapter, our vision, of course, is people living and working in thriving communities beyond Earth and using those vast resources of space for dramatic betterment of humanity. And I would also augment that second part, that using the resources in space to be able to protect the Earth and to be able to make the best use of these mineral resources that we have throughout the solar system. And if you share this vision, there's two things that I'd like for you to do. One is go to our website, northhoustonspace.org, sign up for an email list so that we can keep you up to date about our future meetings and activities. And the second thing I would recommend you do is actually join the National Space Society, which is an organization that is really trying to promote education about the potential of space, both for the betterment of humanity and as a hopeful future that has literally enough space for all of us, but also is working in terms of talking about some of the dangers that space has that we need to protect ourselves against, such as meteors and solar flares. I just want to remind you a little bit about this meeting. So this meeting is being recorded, and we'll post it on YouTube and on our website and Facebook. And there is, you can stop and start your video in the lower left-hand corner. So probably be good to have everybody turn on their video. And with that, I'll turn it over to Greg to talk about space news.
Good, thank you. Okay, you have the full slide view on your screens now? Hello?
No, we don't see anything.
Oh. Okay. Well, Zoom took over. I can't get out anything underneath it.
We see it now.
Oh, I see. Okay, good. All right.
Oh, and we see the speaker's view. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Okay, now we're finally ready, right?
Looks like we're good.
Okay, and is the sound coming through all right as well?
Yes, it's good.
Good. Okay. So, space news. I'll start right off with a NASA rover delay. You know, there's this Perseverance rover. It was scheduled for July. It's been put off a little bit due to some sensor problems, basically. Um, they're going to wait till July 30th. And in fact, they can't wait too much longer than that, just because there's launch windows for at least for optimal trajectories to get from here to Mars. The planets align optimally about every 26 months, and you have a 1 or 2 month window there. Actually, interestingly, I didn't put it in these notes, but there was a paper just put out by some people jointly between NASA and Johns Hopkins saying that it actually might be more efficient to go via Venus. You know, it sounds like it's going the wrong direction, but you get a gravity assist, and actually you can get there with probably less energy, and you have the benefit of seeing Venus along the way. Now, they were talking about manned missions. They weren't really talking about this one, but kind of making the point that things are not always just obvious in space. You know, you don't just always go in a straight line, and many times there are other things, such as approaching Venus, which is maybe going faster than you are at that point and getting a little extra gravity assistance, speed you up and hurl you in the right direction. There's a lot of things you can do in space that you don't really think about. But anyway, yeah, if this thing gets delayed past this summer, meaning end of July or maybe a week or two after that, their next window won't really happen until autumn of 2022. So they really want to get this thing going. So what you're looking at in this slide is a picture of the nose cone. Basically, it's on top of an Atlas V rocket. The fairing, which is what holds the payload, those are the left and right-hand sides there. They're about to enclose the rover, which is actually inside this little thing in the bottom center of the slide. And I'll show you what the thing's going to look like when it's on Mars. The purpose of the mission is actually, there's a lot of different purposes here. One of them is to continue the search for ancient life on Mars, fossil evidence, of past microbial life, that sort of thing. They're talking about a sample return mission. Now, what they're going to do is they have a drill and various scientific instruments, so they can actually take samples. They're planning on leaving, just storing them there somewhere on the assumption that a later mission will come and pick them up. I don't know. I don't think that mission is actually planned yet. But anyways, the hope is that they will have some samples that were taken back now. There's a lot of other functions of this rover, though. Of course, they're going to monitor all kinds of things, such as the weather and that sort of thing. And they're going to do some interesting tests, one of which is testing oxygen generation. This seems like an odd one to me because this is by taking it out of the atmosphere. The atmosphere is almost all CO2, but it's so thin, you might not think at first glance that there's enough oxygen contained in that CO2. But they're going to give that a try because that certainly could enable more resource utilization on Mars and make it a lot easier to settle there, or for that matter, to generate rocket fuel for return trips. And last but not least, there's going to be a helicopter on Mars that is part of this mission. And I'll get to that in a minute. So this is what it would look like as it lands. Now it's going to go, assuming it takes off anytime around the last week in July, it has about 314 million miles to go. And it will land on February 18th, regardless of which day it takes off. That's actually when it would land. It looks like this. This actually is apparently a landing system they have used before. So they're trying to use things that are more or less proven and reliable. But you can see here it's going to lower the rover to the surface, and then I think it just shoots off a little bit and lands somewhere nearby. This is what it would look like when it's on the ground. And as you can see, it's just loaded with all kinds of instruments. They have robot arms, they have drills so they can do samples, they have instruments for doing chemical analyses, and including some laser-based ones. So there'll be lasers on Mars as well as sampling devices. And this is the helicopter. Now, what's going to happen is the rover itself will land. That's the rover on the left-hand side here. And it more or less will leave a little egg underneath. It'll just drive off and leave the egg behind, which is the helicopter. It looks pretty much like a drone you might find on Earth. It's pretty big, relatively large, so 4 pounds. It's got a design life of really only 30 days, but of course, then again, they said something like that about some of the earlier Mars rovers, and they lasted many, many years. So obviously, the hope is it'll last a whole lot longer than that. So, as you might expect, it's solar cell powered. The very top part of that would be the solar cells. So what will happen is the rover will drive off. The thing will sit here and get its batteries fully charged. They'll do a couple of short, test hops and flights, and then they'll really, take off. There's a lot of reasons why you might want a helicopter on Mars. One, part of it is so you can see what kind of obstacles are coming up or what areas might be interesting to explore. You can cover that ground a lot more quickly in a helicopter, obviously, than in a rover. You can also get to places you simply could not get. You could explore the surfaces of cliffs. You can go down into craters that maybe you couldn't get into otherwise, or even caves maybe. Not sure how the control would work out. But the basic idea is that you really are expanding your ability to see a whole lot more quickly. So it's actually a pretty interesting project. I have to admit, I'm a little bit amazed that with the thin atmosphere of Mars, that actually a drone would even work. But obviously, they've done the calculations and they're making it work. You're helped, of course, by the fact that there's lower gravity there as well. But still, there's not much atmosphere there. Okay, now we get into the, you might almost call it the ho-hum part of the presentation. Yet another SpaceX launch of the Starlink satellites. And as you remember, every other month, we pretty much had a slide like this because they're launching them about at least once a month. They put up about 60 each time. This last launch, actually, they only put up 58 because they did a ride sharing. It actually had 3 Earth imaging satellites that went along for the ride. Presumably, they're paying to help defray the cost for SpaceX. You remember, this is going to be a constellation of 12,000 satellites to provide internet service over most of the Earth. You can see there's an angle of inclination that they don't quite cover the poles. They're not polar orbits, but they get close enough that they can cover most of the Earth. You can go to their website, and if you want, you can sign up to get emails telling you about when they're going to be testing the service or making it available commercially. That's probably coming this year, certainly by the beginning of next year, but probably they'll have some testing early this year. Right now, they're saying probably only the fairly northernmost areas. So they're talking about northern Germany and northern parts of the U.S. But at some point, we'll have access. So if you're interested in yet a different internet service provider, if you're getting tired of the ones you have, you might look to the Starlink people from SpaceX. I don't know if you can read the fine print at the bottom of this. In the spirit of SpaceX, they're emphasizing reusability of everything, especially the first stages. So in the spirit of reusability, this picture was reused from last month. That's not a new picture. That continues. There's some related business news, so we'll call this the business news part of it. I think you remember we reported one of the previous months that OneWeb, which is a competitor really for Starlink, went bankrupt. Well, bankruptcies don't usually always kill companies. Quite often they just get, reoriented and recapitalized with new money. That's what happened here. The British government and an Indian telecom company actually went in together to buy it. Now that it's pending approval from the bankruptcy courts in the U.S., they already had significant assets. They had 74 satellites already up there getting ready to provide internet service. That's nowhere near enough to actually have a commercial offering because they're low Earth orbit and they go zooming overhead. There'd be too many interruptions. But anyway, they're coming. And if you remember, these satellites are at a higher altitude than the Starlink would have been. They're up at 1,200 kilometers. And actually, astronomers are kind of concerned about that because they realized that they were all fighting and they're concerned about Starlink interference with the photography that they want to do. That turns out it's going to be nothing because the ones that are up higher actually are visible all night long. they're now even getting much more worried about those, especially since they just filed a proposal to put up 48,000 more satellites. So I put exclamation points there. That's a lot of satellites. Even Starlink was only putting up 12,000, and only 12,000 is kind of an understatement, because that was far more than the total number of satellites that we've ever had. So astronomers are concerned. A separate thing, Amazon Web Services now has a space-focused business unit. I'm not sure how much that changes the reality. They already have been offering ground station services for satellite operators, but I guess it's just they want to really tie up all their services. Amazon Web Services offered cloud services. Well, now that's going even beyond the clouds. Speaking of going above the clouds, there's a different approach to getting up high and getting a nice view of the Earth for tourists, and that's a new venture out there called, well, the venture is from a company called Space Perspective, and the name of the balloon essentially is the spaceship Neptune. And what they're going to do is just go up into the stratosphere. They're going to have 8 passengers and a pilot. They'll climb to about 100,000 feet. They're using a hydrogen-filled balloon, and they emphasize hydrogen for a couple of reasons. One is environmentally, it's a whole lot better. 2, the helium is getting more and more expensive, and it's not as environmentally friendly. And they can generate that anytime. They're going to charge about $125,000. So now your run-of-the-mill multimillionaire can actually, they can organize weddings and that sort of thing. I mean, that actually is part of their marketing is to think about things like that. It will be a lot cheaper than you can get even on other upcoming competitors, compared to Virgin Galactic, for instance. And they're going to launch from Kennedy Space Center in Florida. You don't need a spacesuit. You don't really need any training. They will start testing next year, early next year. I'm not sure when the first manned test will occur, but it will be next year. The whole trip is about 6 hours. It takes about 2 hours to go up. You hover for a couple of hours, and then you return. And then, well, at the end of that trip, then you're dropped in either the Atlantic or the Gulf. And then, of course, they have to come and fish you up and get you back. So it takes more than 6 hours. But that's a lot more time than you're going to get with any of the competitors, where you maybe get 10 minutes or something. Here you're getting a couple hours of hovering. It would look like, this is an artist's conception, this is what it would look like. You're looking at Florida, you will see the curvature of the Earth. It's nowhere near what we normally consider to be space, which is about, say, 62 miles. It's just sort of a convention. So it's only about a third of that height. But still, that gets you up way above where many other people have ever been. And it is above 99% of the atmosphere, so it's still, it's really up there. This company's called Space, started by Tabor McCollum and Jane Pointer. You've probably heard at least one of their names before, because they were involved in Biosphere 2, Paragon Space Development, and Worldview. Worldview actually, in fact, originally had essentially the same goal, to do balloons taking people up into space. It turned out what they're doing is that they really split that company off, and that one's doing more scientific kind of things. They're looking more at ones that are hovering for, say, 30 days. And whereas this is going to be strictly oriented toward tourism, so they split it off. And those two are paying the most attention to this. They've turned over the management of the other companies to other people. So this is much more like a luxury liner. It's going to have a bar, and it's going to have an airline-style toilet. So I'd love to find good quotes from people. Jane Pointer says, "It will have the best view of any loo in the world." And as long as we're going to have catchy titles, this one, Zombie Satellites Return from the Graveyard. I didn't make that title up. Actually, the Electrical Engineering Professional Society, IEEE, in their mass market magazine called Spectrum, they actually had that title, so I picked it up from there. But they're handling what's actually a very real problem. And this is not in low Earth orbit, like Starlink and these other constellations. This is looking up at the very, very high orbits, the geosynchronous orbits, where they appear to be essentially stationary in the sky. And the way it's supposed to work is, once one of those satellites reaches the end of its life, they're supposed to actually boost their orbit to go up even higher, and there's kind of a graveyard area up there. And That's about 300 kilometers higher than their normal elevation above the Earth. So what happens is typically these things are designed for about 15 years. And in any case, the thing is they still work. Quite often, the only thing that's really going wrong is simply that they've run out of maneuvering fuel. All satellites do a certain amount of they call station keeping. They have to make small adjustments to maintain the orbit properly. So the satellites are still functioning. And there's actually 283 of them that are up there in these higher orbits now. They're essentially up there, out of the way. Those orbits are high enough off the Earth, they last essentially forever, unlike the low Earth orbit ones that just decay in 8 or 10 years. So the 283 followed the guidelines, and it's amazing. There's actually a committee called the Interagency Space Debris Coordination Committee that puts out guidelines on these things. But not everybody followed those guidelines. There's a total of about 915 objects near the geosynchronous orbits. 365 of those are now defunct. Those people didn't follow the guidelines. Now, maybe in some cases they couldn't because they lost control, or they had a mechanical failure of some sort. But it's getting to be more and more of a problem. So a solution actually has been arrived at. Actually, NASA has worked with Northrop Grumman, and they've come up with what they call a mission extension vehicle. And what it does is it goes up there, it captures a satellite, and then brings it back to geosynchronous orbit. Where as long as the satellite is still working, that's a good thing. And they just continue working, so the satellite gets some extra life. This is not just a theory, they've already done it. The first one, so mission vehicle 1, it captured an Intelsat satellite back in April and did move it back into service. And what it will do is it'll hold it there for 5 years. At the end of that 5 years, it's going to move it back to the graveyard, so back up, and then move on to a new customer. So they can actually get, and they expect to do about 3 of these with each one of these crafts. There's a second one that's coming this summer. They're going after another Intelsat satellite, and that's in January 2021. I'll make one point about this, that read that again. We're launching this summer. They'll reach the satellite in 2021. It's a reminder that timescales in space can be very deceiving, and that's one reason why not everything is going to be done just by people. You're almost always going to have a lot of craft that are moving slowly simply because it's more fuel efficient, and the scarce resource there is the fuel. And so you really have to honor those constraints, and time isn't necessarily such a big constraint when you're not dealing with keeping people alive. So a lot of that will happen with the overall economy in space in the future. There will be a part of it based around people, and probably large parts of it that are just based around automated or at least remotely operated spacecraft that can operate in a much slower time scale. So back to the topic here, what does this look like? Well, there's 2 pictures here. The one on the left, this was taken about 80 meters before the docking. So this is what it looked like. This is the satellite you're seeing here is the old Intelsat satellite. One on the right, it's a little hard to make out, but this is showing right during the final docking process when the MEV gets in contact. It apparently sticks out a little spring. What it's doing is taking advantage of the fact that all these satellites have a thruster. It's a pretty standardized design and the same size, so they can just basically have this little spring kind of thing arranged just right to push up against it carefully, lock onto it somehow, and then they can move it around. So, and the quote that I found that made this one fun is from Northrop Grumman. They said, "The era of the space garbage truck is coming." So other space news, SpaceX launched, they're also launching the new generation of GPS satellites. That's actually not the first one, this is the 3rd one. This one had been delayed due to COVID-19. The real reason I put that one on here is I wanted to have kind of 2 separate pictures. One on the left-hand side, showing the way we typically think of space and spacecraft. It's rocket science, and that's what it's all about. But there's other issues. It takes more than rocket science to actually settle space. And NASA actually came up with a contest called the Lunar Loo Challenge. $35,000 prize for the best lunar lander toilet design. So anybody has any ideas on this, Get them in quickly because the contest ends on August 17th. They just announced this, so they're not giving people a whole lot of time. The thing is, they've designed plenty of toilets for working on the space station, but that's in a microgravity environment. What they really want is something that will work while you're in orbit, basically, essentially for the human landing system, for the things that are going to go down from moon orbit down to the landing. They want something that will work there. So they're looking for new ideas on design. Yeah, if you take a good look at this picture, this picture, I didn't make this picture up. This actually came from, it was either on the NASA website or they pointed to the contest website. But anyway, they came up with this. You can find this on theverge.com or just Google for Moon Challenge. You can find all kinds of things. It turns out the astronauts, the original Apollo astronauts, when they went to the moon, they really kind of complained that they didn't really have a good way to go to the moon. So this is going to be way, way ahead of what was done back then. Progress is being made. Also, maybe this indicates something very British that must have taken over the space program, because that's now two different uses of the word loo in the same set of overheads here. We had one from Jane Poynter, and now this. What's the world coming to? Okay, so now we get to the really unimportant stuff. I'm making up a segment here called the unimportant space news. And the first one is NASA made a perfume. Who knew? Turns out they really did do this. About 10 years ago, they developed essentially the smell of space, and they were using it in training. They wanted people to not be surprised by anything when they encountered it. There really is a smell to space, apparently, and it's been referred to by a lot of the astronauts. And it really is space itself. It's not the smell of the spacecraft, which, not surprisingly, probably does smell after it's been up there for 10 or 15 years full of people. This is something that you only can smell when you re-enter a spacecraft after a spacewalk. So, there must be a few tiny little particles of things that have come in with the spacesuit. People say that it smells like gunpowder. Some other people say it smells like burned cookies. I've seen also reference to something like after arc welding, basically all kinds of smells of that sort anyway. So NASA had done this, and they just used it internally for training purposes. Someone came up with the idea of, let's launch a company to sell this to the wider market, call it O to Space. And they've actually raised $300,000 by Kickstarter. It just goes to show you can start a business doing almost anything on Kickstarter. Okay, the next extremely unimportant space news, excuse me, there's a birthday party for the founder of Firefly Aerospace. They're in Austin. That founder, Max Polyakov, was having a birthday party, and anyway, his company was throwing it for him, and a technical discussion came up. What's the optimal way to light 43 candles? And they made a video about this. That it really it's when you have that many candles, it's hard to light it. You can, if you're not careful, you burn your arm when you put it over a lit candle, and you can't do it very fast. So how can you light them faster, for instance? Well, they came up with a solution. They were rocket scientists, so that was their solution. That's the cake right there. There's the rocket engine, and by golly, it lit those candles really, really quickly. It is kind of amusing to watch the video if you want to go look. You can find it on space.com. This is what the cake looked like afterwards. It probably would not be considered very edible. A couple lessons there, of course, is the rocket science itself, once again, isn't always the solution for everything. But also, of course, if you're going to ask scientists or engineers to come up with an optimum solution, you better define pretty carefully what optimum means, or you might end up with this. But a good video is had by all. Okay, on to the segment on how many launches occurred since the last meeting.
And I have just enabled the poll so people can vote on it. I think if you go down to the polling feature, you should be able to see. It looks like we have a few votes for less than 5, 6, 8, 9, 9's 11. We'll just give it
4 again here. Okay, so let's see.
We'll just give it maybe 10 more seconds. See if anybody wants to cast another vote. Okay, I'll end the polling and we'll share the results. So I guess everybody can see the results. So it looks like most people said less than 5. Some people said 6, 7, 8, 9, and 11, which is kind of funny because I think the right answer is right between those numbers. So let's.
Yeah. Well, let's find out. Okay, let's see. I guess you probably have to unshare that then.
Oh, I need to stop the polls. Okay. Did that do anything? Poll. Stop sharing results. Okay, cool. There we go.
Oh, still there.
Oh.
Oh, that's the poll. Okay. I can close that. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Well, actually, let's see. I guess we have to count them here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yep. It's,
9.
9. So more than most people thought. In fact, it would have been one more. One was scheduled to go off today, and I just crossed this off at the last minute. The next, I mentioned there was the 9th batch of Starlink satellites went up earlier this month. They were supposed to do it actually a couple of days ago. That got delayed for weather, and today they just canceled it again, not for weather, this time for some minor rocket problem. They didn't specify exactly what. But anyway, that's been put off, so it'll probably show up the next time. So what are some other ones that were launched, though? There's a brand new Chinese rocket that failed, but we count those as launches. I think actually it was the second stage that failed, not the first. So the first stage did work. This one it has a longer Chinese name. They're abbreviating it to KZ-11. This one can send 3,300 pounds to low Earth orbit or 220 pounds to medium Earth orbit. Actually, those numbers are kind of a reminder there that why space does get so expensive is that, to get up higher and higher, it just takes so much more, so much more fuel, and you lose so much payload in the process of doing it. It really gets expensive really, really quickly. Another Chinese before that. And we'd mentioned last time that those New Zealand guys at Rocket Labs, they're back in business. So they had 2 launches. One was down here on June 13th. That one was successful. Interestingly, it launched things including a U.S. spy satellite and a lot of CubeSats. CubeSats are the small ones. They're about 3 inches. They're in 3-inch cubes or in multiples of those. And they typically then launch a whole variety of them. The New Zealanders are doing the small ones, small rockets, so they can put a bunch of CubeSats up. The one that failed had 7, and it was, again, a whole mixture of customers. We'd already mentioned the new generation of GPS satellites being launched by SpaceX. A couple more Chinese satellites, and we mentioned Starlink, and that's about it. So it's mostly Chinese launches here, and then followed that by the Americans. One I'll mention that is not on here yet, but it's coming up. If it's on schedule, it's coming up on the 15th. Is kind of probably a surprise to a lot of people. Is actually a mission to Mars. And it is an orbital. It's an orbital result. It's not landing. It's just an orbit. But this is put out by the United Arab Emirates. Small country, happens to be a very rich country, but a very, very small country. It just goes to show you there's a lot of people getting into space. It's not just the big space powers anymore. Okay, now we'll get to introducing our speaker, Yamna Majid. She's a student at the medical lab technology at the Allama Iqbal Medical College. I had to look that up. That's in Lahore, Pakistan, and it is considered in the Wikipedia article. They say it's one of the top facilities in the country. So it's a good place to go. She also, more importantly, from our standpoint here, is an aspiring astronaut. She's been promoting astronomy and space technology in Pakistan since 2016, founding Exploration, which is a space education-based social enterprise in Pakistan. The defining quote here is, "As a school kid, I was told space has no scope in Pakistan, so I decided to create it." And this is exactly the kind of entrepreneurial spirit that we always try to support here. And at this point, I'll turn it over to her. So I'll stop sharing my screen.
Hello.
Hello. Yumna, would you like for me to share out the presentation, or did you want to do that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I want to do that.
Okay, fantastic.
So you guys have it on your screen now.
I don't see it yet. Did you want me to share it or?
Yes, kindly share.
Okay, I'll do that. Oops. Looks like
Yeah, that's cool.
sorry, I went back to 4. I'll just, okay, let's see, let's share screen, and then let's go back here, and I guess give me a nod or something when you want me to go to the next slide.
Yes, sure. So, hello everyone. I am Yumna Majid, as you guys have already from my introduction. I always love to start every presentation or talk with this single Latin phrase, that is per aspera ad astra, through hardship to the stars, because I can personally relate it. My story is very similar because it's very true that there is no shortcut to start, and one has to work really hard to get there. So moving on to the next slide, this is a painting. I hope you guys can understand. It is a baby fetus, like a fetus astronaut. I made it a few years ago. I saw this as a tattoo. I again, I could relate it to it, and whenever someone asks that, what was the single moment when you got that spark of astronomy, or you developed that interest or passion to become an astronaut, I show them this painting uh, because I believe my connection with the astronomy was since the beginning. There is not even a single moment when I can say that, okay, when I was 5 years old and I looked at the sky and I developed the interest in astronomy. No, this this curiosity is within me. It's something by birth. It is innate. Maybe it is way more amplified in me, and I don't want to let it go. So, to the next slide, you guys can see that a lonely boy standing wearing a space helmet. When I was in grade 9, uh, it was our first day, and our science teacher was asking every student about their ambition. So it was a class of 60 girls, where my turn was on number second. And when I told my teacher and my entire class that I want to become an astronaut, I was then mocked by my own science teacher. My teacher laughed at me and he told me that there is no such thing as space. Uh, Everyone in my class, every girl wants to become a doctor or an engineer. So these are considered the only respectable professions over here, the most prestigious professions. So mine was a bit different, and my teacher told me that there is no such thing as space. There is like nothing outside planet Earth, and I was really discouraged and demotivated because I was just a 14 years old girl. But my passion for astronomy was, or becoming an astronaut, uh, was never, I can say, it was never ever listened by any kind of discouragement. We do have, which I really felt bad in my childhood, that in our television's morning shows, we have a horoscope and astrology section. When I was a kid, I used to watch TV morning. And what I was saying was, I don't know should I say this or not, but it's pseudoscience, astrology, and horoscope. And we were not seeing any science show or any astronomy show at our TV. Apart from that, our space agency, Pakistan has a space agency which is SPARCO, Space and Upper Atmosphere and Research Center. So their public engagement is not as much as it should be. And luckily, I managed to get an invitation of a water rocket competition from Spargo. Again, I went to my teacher and I told her that I want to do this competition, but the term is I have to go with my teacher at Spargo. Um, Again, my teacher took that letter from me and told me that it is useless and I shouldn't do this. It has no benefit, it has no educational benefit, and blah, blah, blah. Again, it was discouragement, but uh, there was something within me which kept me moving on, and maybe it made me really angry that when everyone around me is telling me that it is not possible, I have to make it possible somehow. So that kind of pressure I was having around my from my surroundings. So in grade 10th, I came to know a Facebook group, which was a group of amateur astronomers from my city, Lahore. And to be very honest, I was over the moon. So I have specifically attached this picture of Northern Lights here before because before my 10th grade, I used to believe that these photos are only desktop wallpapers. Uh, I know that that's kind of foolish, but yes, so I used to think that these are only desktop wallpapers. But then one day on Facebook, I saw a similar photo with a caption saying in Iceland. So I Googled about it and I came to know that this is a real astronomical phenomena. And it was literally like mind blowing moment for me. At that time, the only source for me to get information about astronomy was TV, newspapers, and of course, internet. And then when I got Facebook, I got this exposure to a very big network of people having different interests. So next, that next slide is I say that that was me when I came to know about a local astronomy group in my own city. I was on the moon. I was very glad because uh, at that time I used to think that maybe I'm the only one crazy person in this entire country who loves space. But after joining this Facebook group, I realized that there are people in my country who are working and who are trying to create space awareness in Pakistan even before my birth. So next slide, it shows how a student gets a degree. What my parents wanted for myself was to get a good degree. I was never forced to join medical or engineering. Uh, thank God I had this privilege because most of the students have to choose a profession that their parents select for them. For me, it was an open choice. I could join space sciences, I could join engineering, or I could join medical. Why I didn't join space sciences was number one, no scope or good institute in Pakistan who offers a space or astronomy degree. And the second biggest reason was math phobia. Uh, I was very afraid of math, and honestly, I used to cram the answers and solutions of my math questions. So that was being dishonest with the subject. So I knew it that space sciences would take a lot of math, and I developed this math phobia uh, because maybe because my math teacher was he used to spoil kids on little matters. So maybe that's why I developed that phobia. I don't want to blame any teacher over here, but it was completely my own choice to join medical laboratory sciences. My final year elective is genetics, and I joined this field because my second biggest passion is genetics. I I love to figure out the modes of inheritance. I love dinosaurs, honestly. So as a child, that was my wild dream, and I thought, okay, fine, not space, but I'm not going to be a doctor. I want to study this subject. And so finally, when I got into a medical school, my parents allowed me that, okay, now you can do some extracurricular activities. It was year 2016. Kindly next slide. It was year 2016, and I invited Lahore Astronomical Society at my college. So in the picture on right, it is Sir Umair Asim. On right, it is Sir Roshan Bukhari. These two people motivated me a lot. They supported me a lot when I was about to start my space awareness campaign. They really helped me a lot, and they bought this big uh, alpha telescope, which is the only one telescope uh, in my entire state, I believe, and not just the city. So moving on to the next slide, I started my journey from celebrating World Space Week in 2006. This is the classroom where I presented my first astronomy presentation. A class full of girls, and it is the exact same classroom where I used to attend my own lectures. That was my own school who allowed me to come and do this presentation because it was really difficult to get permission from school. Principals were not agreeing, teachers were not agreeing because in Pakistan, we do not have astronomy and space jobs. So teachers were giving such comments that you yourself are a medical student, and why you want to create space awareness. Space is a field in which our students cannot have jobs and they cannot have a career. So why you are doing this? Finally, this was my own school who allowed me and welcomed me to come and talk about space. So this was my first and the most memorable session. Moving on to the next slide. After celebrating World Space Week 2016, I celebrated that year all alone. I had no team. I visited schools and talked to the kids, debunking space myths. Then, after seeing those pictures, Institute of Space Technology, Islamabad, is a private university in Pakistan which offers space-related degrees. They invited me for their summer school, and over there, I delivered a lecture on astrobiology. I prepared it pretty much well, but I was not much confident because back then I was only 19 years old and I was giving a lecture to 17 or 18 years old kids. So I no doubt they invited me and gave me the honor that I am delivering a lecture. Uh, I traveled from my city to the other city to deliver this lecture, but I have this fear in myself that I do not have any degree in astronomy because this is something which has been put in my mind again and again that you cannot do it because you don't have degree in it. So moving on to the next slide. These pictures are from World Space Week 2017. This telescope, the man standing over there is Sir Maruf Mia. At that time, I had no telescope, but telescope was a very strong point in order to make schools agree for an astronomy section. So I used to call Sir Maruf, and he used to bring his telescope to any school. He also belongs to Lahore Astronomical Society. Thanks to them again that they have helped me a lot. Uh, and you can see the right picture. So one is from girl, and the left picture is from a boys' campus, an all boys campus. I tried to create this I do support women in STEM a lot, and girls in STEM. But I wanted to create this gender equality over here because one time I went to a school and asked them to give me a girls class and also give me a boys class because I want to teach it to both genders. So principal said that we can give you girls class, but we cannot give you boys class because you are a female and they will not let you speak in the class. There is not much age gap and blah blah blah. So I was really disheartened over this comment, and I tried to get more and more uh, boys as well as girls campus because if this subject, every subject, but especially this subject is for all. We do not have this subject in our school, which means that boys equally need to know about space as much as for girls. So moving on to the next slide, uh, my one of my biggest achievements is to work with retired NASA astronaut Nicole Stott. In the end of 2017, I finally agreed her uh, to make Pakistan part of her mission, which is Space for Art Foundation. Under her organization, we paint about space with kids. So kids paint about space. They write postcards to astronauts, and they paint on little fabric of spacesuits. Uh, then those fabrics are given to the pieces of fabric are given to IDLC rover company that makes spacesuits. I hope I am saying it right. So they make a proper spacesuit which is full of colors, and there have been a quilt and two spacesuits which have been to International Space Station as well. In one of the spacesuits, Pakistan participated. Pakistan has sent artwork from Lahore up in the International Space Station, and that was like very big deal for me, sending something to space from like from me or from my country to International Space Station, even if it was in a digital form. It was really a big deal for me because over here we never saw a rocket launch, or we don't have observatories or planetariums. So space is like pretty rare, and sending something to space is even a bigger deal. So after doing this project with astronaut Nicole, I did it with a hospital, and then I faced some disappointing moments and agreements with that hospital. uh, Maybe they did that. That was a bad experience. I don't want to mention it, but what I learned from that experience was uh, my age. People used to think that it's just a little girl and we can just like exploit her and we can take all the credits, and it's just okay. I was most of the time I was taken for granted. Moving on to the next slide, my most favorite picture. So this is me with some pediatric patients. They were cancer patient kids, and they are having their paintings, which were scanned and sent to International Space Station. I was so happy for these kids. Honestly, they were so lovely, and they were uh, full of awe that, oh wow, there is some space, and they can send something to space. Uh, with these paintings, they wrote little messages for astronauts or anyone who lives in space, and it's always fascinating to learn about a kid's imagination about space. Moving on to the next slide. I am sorry for mentioning that, but that is me uh, holding my first and only telescope. I won this telescope in 2018 from an international uh, competition. This telescope is signed by NASA astronaut Scott Kelly, my favorite astronaut, and a European astronaut astronaut Frank Givini and Fremont. Why I wrote this caption with this picture? A young terrorist with AK-47. Because winning this telescope was a big deal, but getting this telescope out of custom officers was also it was like a mission impossible. So first, when I went to the airport to receive my parcel, they told me that you do not have a space degree and you do not deserve this thing. We cannot give you. I was like, okay, what is happening? I showed them my certifications and my letter from Institute of Space Technology and some other international organizations who had acknowledged my work. So I took the printouts and I showed my affiliation to space. They agreed and they told me to come again to receive my telescope after like some paperwork. When I went there again, I was told that telescope is a terrorism too, and we cannot give you a telescope. I was literally shocked, and I was almost crying because that exact sentence was told to me on call, on a phone call, and at that moment I was giving my final year exam, my Viva exam at that time, and I was devastated at that time because I was giving an exam of a medical degree in which I can really work hard and I can make my own career. And at the same time, I was getting this call being told that telescope is a useless tool and we cannot give you. So I was literally very confused that this is something I'm doing for my country to raise awareness, and this is my own career, and I can like why I am doing this. I was really confused. So the next slide, it was okay, it's fine. It was a little discouragement moment from the custom officers, but I still managed to get my telescope out, and I didn't stop my space awareness campaign. I started going to different cities as much as possible. So I do have travel restrictions. I do not travel much. So this is one of the picture, which was my first intercity outreach program. How I started was it was the moment when I started receiving little space goodies and stickers from my friends, from my Facebook friends from like US and Europe, who used to send me these cute little space stickers and some infographics and in educational material, which was really helpful for kids. They literally get excited. So after every outreach session or after every presentation, I used to do a question answer session, and anyone who gives the correct answer would used to get a sticker. Soon I realized that my talk is ending. So what I did, I started printing stickers uh, locally. It was really very easy. People, especially my friends used to say that you are wasting money on these things. It was really ridiculous comment. I don't believe it was wasting money. No, I was investing in the education of young kids. So I used to save my pocket money because, of course, I had no funding or help from anyone. So I used to save my pocket money and then print such stickers and buy such stuff that I can give to the kids. Moving on to the next slide. In like by in the beginning of year 2018, after 2 years of my voluntary work, my father and my mentor made me realize that things are not working. I am facing problems because I am offering my services completely for free, and free is generally for granted. Another mentor told me that I need to get sustainability. For how long I will keep saving up my own money? and I will like spend it on the kids. It is good, but it is not sustainable at all. And another mentor, Sir Roshan Bukhari, told me that you should make your passion your profession. So these advices really helped me. And next slide. So I realized that modern problems have modern solutions. So I did this. Next slide. So this is Exploration Kids of Cosmos, the logo of my space education organization. What what change I did was I did branding of my space education campaign. Before Exploration, I never made a page where I could post my photos of what I am teaching to kids. I used to take photos, but I used to keep them with myself or used to send them via emails to different organizations in US or UK with whom I was working. Uh, I just made this logo. I made social media accounts of Exploration and start posting uh, my data over there. One of the biggest change that I bought was I started charging a little fees from private schools. I stopped offering my free services to private schools so that the revenue or any little profit that I generate from private schools was spent on public schools, orphanages, trusts, and foundation schools. So of course, it is not very easy. Private schools or low income schools are not very much flexible in paying you for something that is not very much friendly over here in Pakistan and which is very unpredictable. But still, I managed to because I wanted to start it. And honestly speaking, the results for mind blowing. Uh, I started my journey from the point where schools were not allowing me to talk to their kids about space, but soon after this branding thing, schools started inviting me to their classrooms, and I can talk to the kids. So next slide. Yes. How? So come back home before it gets dark. This is again something that I can relate very much to over here in Pakistan. As I mentioned earlier, that I have some travel restrictions. I cannot travel alone. I cannot travel to very much far cities. Also, whatever I do, even in my own city, whatever workshops I'm conducting, whatever conferences I am attending, I have I have this rule from my parents that I have to get back to my home before it gets dark. So it's pretty funny in my case because astronomy is mostly something that we do in the night time in dark sky. But I have to like come back home before it gets dark. It creates a bit problem, but not very much because I am trying to manage. I'm not able to conduct a lot of night sky observations, but I still do that. I find one way or other because like I have to do this. Coming to the next slide. So yeah, uh, Exploration is a one-woman army in which I am the content developer. I am the social media manager. I am the person who buys all the workshop materials, and people literally used to make fun of me that why I am doing this, and I'm a mad person. I am promoting this science which is like not working in Pakistan because we cannot have jobs of astronomy and space education in Pakistan. Uh, I have received pretty much negative comments as well, but at the same time, I have received a lot of love from little kids and their parents, which uh, makes me uh, it makes me move on, and I don't want to like stop. So moving on to the next slide. Next slide. So starting from the left, this is a kid from a very rural area of Islamabad. It was a village in the outskirts of Islamabad, and I met this kid over there, and he was very enthusiastic. I'm so sorry, I'm getting. So this kid was very enthusiastic about astronomy, and the middle kid, I gave this workshop last year, and this kid has knowledge about astronomy more than me, that I had to keep quiet and listen to him. And it was really good for me to see a kid who is like super enthusiastic, and I work for such kids in Pakistan. The third and the last picture is a little kid who is standing with my telescope. So this is a picture which his mother shared with me on Facebook, and told me that my son attended your workshop and he misses you a lot, and he wants to attend more space workshops. So these are the comments which keep me uh, going on, and I am doing it for past 4 years. And so the next slide, yeah, is the sun. And I really want to like thank our sun. Thank you so much, sun, because that is the only object that we can see at the daytime. And yes, at schools in the morning time, I can actually take out my telescope and show them the sun. I have this restriction that I cannot arrange night sky observations very easily, but yes, because of the sun, I can still take out my telescope and I can tell kids about sun, and it's all the astronomy of sun. So the next slide, there comes a moment in my life where where I decided to quit, because July 2018, my father passed away. Uh, so I lost him very. It was too soon, and like without any, you know, without any kind of like any alarming situation. I just lost him suddenly, and I decided to quit astronomy and quit all my passions, and I should work on my degree and get good education and blah blah blah. But then my mother told me that what you do is is a noble cause. You teach kids, no matter what type of science you are teaching, but you are passing on the knowledge, and not everyone do that, so you should not quit. So after a very harsh decision of 2 to 3 months, I decided that okay, I will not quit, and if I am doing something noble, it this is something that actually my dad wants to do. So when my mother told me that your father was really happy with your work, I decided that I will not quit. And to the next slide, in that year, 2018, World Space Week, I celebrated World Space Week with uh, most enthusiastic World Space Week I ever celebrated was 2018. I just wanted to make a bang, and I approached as many schools as I could. And the best part of 2018 Space Week celebration was I reached out to private schools, I reached out to public schools, I reached out to a trust school as well as an orphanage. So World Space 2018 uh, was the point where I actually tested the business model of exploration, like how I can run it as a social enterprise. Moving on to the next slide, what I learned uh, after my 3 years of space education career was people used to exploit each other, and they lack professional skills and they want to compete. Uh, I want to change that thing. I want to give that message of collaboration and to learn professional ethics and to not exploit your fellow professional people. Moving on to the next slide. So in 2019, in the beginning of 2019, there was a documentary, a little feature about me, which a very renowned telecommunication company of Pakistan made about me. That is Ufone. You can watch that video on YouTube if you enter my name, Yumnamati. So this this video, this feature gave me a lot of attention from a lot of Pakistani people. But I realized that I never wanted that attention. I don't want publicity. I was a really shy person. I still am, but I have overcome that thing by like talking to a lot of people and conducting countless space sessions. But I realized that I don't want publicity. But that was a very confusing point of my life where I know that I don't want publicity, but at the same time, I know that very well that my work can reach out to many people and it can help me to create a larger impact on the kids of Pakistan. Because even if I alone work till the age of 99 years old, I cannot create space awareness in entire Pakistan. So moving on to the next slide, this is another picture from a school which was situated in a village in the outskirts of Islamabad. You can see the big line, that long line of kids who were waiting to look at the sun from this telescope. This telescope was probably for the first time, or maybe first and the last time they were seeing a telescope. I was not supposed to do a session for entire school over there because that school had almost 6,000 kids. I was supposed to do a session with 60 kids only, but once I took my telescope out in the ground, everyone surrounded it and everyone wanted to see it. After that picture, the organization who gifted me this telescope told me that one telescope is not enough for me now because I'm teaching more students now. So moving on to the next slide, in 2019, there were a lot of astronomy and space education ventures in Pakistan. And I am personally very happy about them because uh, as many ventures will create more awareness and there is kind of mission, like I have this in my head that I want to make astronomy viral and trendy in Pakistan. So I believe that more organizations will create more awareness, and rather than doing a competition with them, we just collaborate. So yes, moving on to the next slide, it says my journey is from do not detract our students to we would love to have you at our school. Both of these comments are from principal of two different schools. So this thing really summarized my 4-year journey. Yeah. So the next slide is I was awarded by Asia Pacific Space Generation Leadership Award back in November 2019. This award was given to me by Space Generation Advisory Council, which is an international space organization. My award was a scholarship amount to attend this conference in Nagoya, Japan, where I led the group of women in space. It was my first international tour, my first international experience, and my very first overwhelming experience of meeting the people who are actually working in space sector. And also there were a lot of people with whom I was connected via Facebook for like many years ago. So it was very good to meet them finally in person. So the next slide, the search for your career in space. Uh, Again, till date, people will say that like space and medicine, they are two completely opposite fields. and I keep telling them that there is space for everyone in space. Space need engineers and doctors and medical technologists and geneticists and rocket engineers and architects and we do have lawyers and like a lot of professions. So this is very interesting for me to combine space with every other career. And for me, I am personally interested in space physiology, space genetics, and how like how space travel changes human body and the human health in space. That's my interest specifically in space that I actually want to uh, take as a career. Next slide. So these are the few advices that I give in all my sessions to usually I give this to the kids that make your father or mother your best friend. Share everything with them, your fears, your excitement, like everything, because there can be no good friend, like no good friend more than a mother or a father. The second is never ever let your dreams die. And the third one is use the internet correctly. Do not sit idle and wait for opportunities. Use internet correctly and you will get countless opportunities over there, not just for space, for everything. And last is never ever give up, no matter how many times you are broken and demotivated and discouraged. The next one is, you can say, my agenda of working. Number one is work hard in the silence, apply your success back then. I am the person who do not announce a project before it's done. So, and the next one is be the change you wish to see in the world. This quotation is very close to my heart because again, this quotation gives a very positive message that stop complaining about anything. If there is something wrong in the society, then stand up and change it. The next one is be who you needed when you were younger. Yes. So that is what I am trying to be for past 4 years. Uh, the way I was mocked by my own teacher, I do not want any kid of Pakistan or any kid on this entire planet to be mocked or to be discouraged the way I was discouraged. Yeah. So the next slide, um, I just want to tell a bit about the current situation of exploration and how it works. So exploration is a social enterprise which has been working for the past 4 years to promote astronomy among kids, especially of age group 6 to 14 and public as well. So as I mentioned before that I charge from private schools and then we do the same workshop at schools and orphanages for completely free. Apart from that, we take donations in the form of like storybooks, educational material, infographics. Currently, I do not have any support from my government, and we also don't have any Pakistani astronaut yet, which means that our school-going students or anyone over here do not have they do not have a role model. uh, we cannot say that there is a Pakistani astronaut. In these days I am working on it. I'm trying to get an astronaut on board, just for a question answer session or anything that can like inspire kids that if another person is an astronaut, then this thing is possible, right? This is not something fictional. Apart from that, yes, we are always looking for educational material and content and all the information how we can teach astronomy kids more interactively and more engagingly. And the last one is I have came to a point where I want to uh, generate the content locally because whenever I try to order something, there are a lot of shipment issues. So like apart from books and apart from educational material, if I think that like the shipment issues that I have after getting a telescope or after getting little space rock, I came to the point where I want to start generate content locally. I want to make space books which are made in Pakistan. Uh, of course, I am not in a situation to do this on a large scale because, of course, it takes a lot of funding and a lot of effort. But this is on my list because I don't know. It is really unpredictable that for how long I will depend on these shipments and on orders that may sometimes are just lost in the mail. So I want to make local electronic content, books and games and toys, which are made in Pakistan or for Pakistani kids. And yes, uh, last thing, apart from all my space career, space education journey, I am a medical lab technologist who wants to create a dinosaur. Yes, so this is my like a wild dream to become an astronaut and to recreate dinosaurs. Yes, and the last slide is thank you so much. Yes, so I'm done.
Great. Thank you so much, Yumna. I appreciate. I know it's quite late there. Um, you mentioned this is usually the time you get started, so you seem really chirpy. So that's good. I'm going to allow everybody to mute themselves. So if you have some questions for Una, you can go ahead and ask them. So
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello. Yes, I can.
Do you have model rocketry over there in Pakistan?
Which rocketry?
Model rocketry. It's small rockets that young people can build and fly. If you want to
No.
do astronautics, it might be something of interest.
So we have some kind of legal issues over here. There cannot be any private rocket company. I tried doing this SS rocket thing.
Yes.
Shipment of SS rocket is also not possible because they are like considered fireworks and dangerous. Apart from that, we have sometimes these legal issues to fly a drone camera. So, like launching a rocket, like mini rockets, is on my list. Uh, but again, I do not have like SS rockets or something like that. I made an alternative of rockets, which is a PVC pipe storm rocket, and kids can make their paper model of rocket and they can launch it. With the help of that activity, I teach them how rockets work and Newton's third law of motion and stuff like that.
I'm sorry you don't have access to them, but
Yeah.
keep doing what you're doing.
Yes,
So-
I am. One way or other, I have to.
So where was the water rocket competition that you were not able to
That-
participate in?
Yeah, you got Hotmail. Well, Hotmail might be throwing it into the junk. It's coming in as EIR, Daily Alert.
Somebody's got an
So-
open mic that ought to mute, please.
Okay, so the water rocket competition was at Sparko, that is Pakistan's national space agency. They do celebrate World Space Week every year, and it was this water rocket competition over there. And of course, I was just a kid, and back then I never heard of water rocket competition, and I didn't know how to build a water rocket. And of course, I needed my physics teacher for that project, but I was again being told that that is not something for you, which is not meant for you.
So
Okay.
I have a friend of mine who runs a water rocket competition in India, in Delhi, and
Wow.
also a space settlement design competition in Delhi. Are you familiar with that?
Maybe because I know a space organization from India that is STAR, and they actually do the rocket stuff. They teach rocketry to the kids, and they launch some rockets as well. I don't know someone from India who does the water rockets right now.
So 3 years ago, I was in Delhi, and I was a mentor for a group of girls from Lahore that were at the space settlement design competition.
Okay, yes, I got it. So these are the competition, and I would like to mention that yes, Pakistani kids go to India for space settlement, and they go to some rover challenges from I guess at NASA as well.
Mhm.
But only like you can say that there is only private schools can go there, and not even every private school. Only private schools who can actually afford it. So in Pakistan, if we make this over average, then I guess it hardly makes 10 to 15% of our entire education system who can actually afford to go internationally to such competitions. I know there are schools like who have been participating in such competition, but more than 60% of Pakistani students are in like public schools and low income schools. So it's really not possible for them. And that's actually the reason that I made this social enterprise exploration, because my personal motive is spaces for everyone, and there should not be even a single kid uh, who remains in the back only due to financial barriers. I like if a kid is not financially strong, it's not his mistake. He has each right to learn astronomy and, to enjoy the beauty which is beyond the planet Earth. So that's the reason I work with private schools as well as government, because every child has equal rights to learn.
Well, I'm not sure what happened, but 3 years ago, the school had some girls from Pakistan at the competition, and 2 years ago, they were not able to go for one reason or another. And
Yeah.
this year in January, they were not able to go. So that's.
Oh, I guess so. It's kind of India Pakistan thing. We have political conflict due to which uh, traveling between India and Pakistan has been banned for past 2 years. Unfortunately.
So
Yeah.
are you able to join National Space Society?
National Space Society online.
Yeah. There's online, and it's open. It's called National Space Society, but it is international.
Yes, so I know National Space Society, and I am a member of it. I would love to mention that back in 2017, someone on Facebook saw my volunteer work, and they gifted me the membership of National Space Society. I actually have to renew for this year, but I am a member, and I am so honored to be a part of the society.
Okay, and there's also a space settlement contest, which I think can be entered by anybody, and I don't believe it costs much, if anything, to enter that. So that
Yes,
may be
I don't
something to look into.
Yes, I've surely checked for that.
So that may be something you could do to help get involvement.
Yes, so we have hand raised from Sir Peter and Sam.
Okay.
Yeah, Peter, did you have a question? Oh, I think I muted you earlier.
You need to unmute.
There, now I'm unmuted, I think, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Sajid, I was wondering if you've had any ability to contact the space agencies of the United States, Europe, Japan, China, and if there's any pathways for you to obtain the kind of training that are open to you.
Yes, I have tried. I have sent various emails, but I unfortunately never got any response.
Oh.
All I know about are some private space academies in US who provide private astronaut training, but of course that is like it costs thousands of dollars, thousands of
Yeah.
euros. That is not possible for me to take that training. So yeah, unfortunately, here I am.
Well, let's just hope that the intensity and growth of the space industries is such that doors start opening up for you and your friends.
Yes, I really.
Yeah, you were mentioning Una about the Pakistan-India thing, and I know that India is thinking of starting a human space program. I was wondering if you think that might encourage Pakistan to do something similar, and there actually be a pathway.
You got an answer for all that.
I really want to.
My answer.
Is there someone wants to say something?
Oh no, I think it was just background noise.
Okay. Sorry. So yes, I know India is up to this, and our neighboring country, India, is really doing great in space sector. I have friends from India, and I really respect them for the knowledge and the hard work they have been doing. But at the same time, this is something really on a very national and political level. Like I am just an ordinary citizen of my country, and my friends over India who are working for space awareness over there are ordinary citizens of their country. So this is something that is not in our hand. The most we can do is to write letters and proposals to the stakeholders and the ministers of like science and technology. Uh, and we have done that. Like I have done that on my part long ago, but unfortunately, no response.
I see, Sam, you have your hand up. You have a question?
Yeah, hi. I'm from Pakistan originally myself. I'm in Austin right now. And I just had a question whether, Yumna, you have looked into collaborating with Dr. Parvez Hoodbhoy. He's an MIT trained physicist who has turned 70 today. It's his birthday, but he's a very famous guy in, science
Yes.
and he has YouTube channels, and that to me honestly is perhaps the best avenue because I've been attending, because of this COVID crisis, McDonald observatory programs online and things like that. So everybody has a phone, in Pakistan, so that might be something to do.
Yes. First of all, thank you so much. It is very good to know that someone from Pakistan is also listening. And apart from that, Sir Parvez Hudwa is he has been doing amazing work. He is, I think, one of the very few people, one of the very few Pakistani people who have been working for astronomy in Pakistan instead of like leaving Pakistan. And yes, there are he is offering courses as well. What I can, the maximum I can do is to do a collaboration with him where he can offer something for elder kids, because right now, according to like my intellectual level or as much as I can manage is the age group of like much younger age group, little kids. This has been difficult for me because I am still not graduated. and I always have to take care of my studies as well as exploration. So I have plans to grow exploration, of course. I want to make a team. I don't want to keep it a one-woman army forever. And thank you so much for this like idea. I can actually collaborate with him to offer course for uh, much elder kids and like maybe college-going students and university students. He's actually been offering astronomy course at S College, but recently he has like his contract has ended and he has resigned. So I think that's a huge loss, and we need other platforms for him to tell astronomy. Thank you so much for that.
And one other minor thing I just wanted to suggest, there's a very large, Pakistani community in North America. I mean, there are more than 1,000 doctors in the Houston area alone. And I know quite a few of them, they're involved in with their own children, with amateur astronomy. So that might be something to, look into as well for funding. And, with online, you can do a program here and, kids from Pakistan can participate too. Just a thought.
And
Yeah,
oh,
that is good. Yes.
oh, I
Yes,
was just
Adam.
gonna say, Sam, that's a good point about so many Pakistanis here in North America. We were thinking that if somebody was going from Houston or Austin to Lahore, that it might be possible to have them carry some telescopes and other supplies with them. So if you know of anybody or know anybody that knows anybody, let us know. We would love to kind of um, have them help facilitate that.
Because that would be really amazing because it will avoid all the official shipment problem of like shipping a telescope or anything. If you are from Pakistan, then you would know that how much difficult to deal with our customs is. So like I was straight told that the telescope is a terrorism tool and we cannot hand it over to you. Apart from that, I got two tiny meteorites, a few tiny meteorites for educational purpose, of course, and I actually had to fight for them as well. So if someone is carrying such material in their luggage, then it is pretty much amazing to get educational stuff without any hassle. I have actually bought two. I won two more telescopes from International Astronomical Union. I hope most people knew it. But unfortunately, I do not have them in Pakistan because when I won my first telescope, I had to use influence of some high profile school to get it out of the customs. And at that time, I had my dad who helped me, and now I don't have my dad, so I don't have that kind of support. So I have asked like the other telescopes not to be shipped to Pakistan.
It sounds like that solar telescopes are of more use to you since doing nighttime observations is difficult and you can actually use them. Is that true?
Yes, it's true, but now thank God that my work is getting enough recognition that I am like I'm slowly getting permission from my family to like take it easy and let me do the night sky observations because uh, like we have to my family is pretty much concerned about the society and uh, we have this thing over here in Pakistan about like the girls and it is not safe for girls to go out there and stuff like that. But it's not 100% true. There are girls who can go out like after the dark as well. And I am actually planning to collaborate with food places to do night sky observation because that would be pretty amazing. Restaurants are good places to like reach out to more people. So I'm planning to take my telescope at different restaurants and like offer night sky observation for free for everyone.
That's really awesome. And I just want to thank you again for coming and speaking to us and sharing about your inspiration, your challenges, and the way you've been using everything to inspire the people around you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for
Hey,
inviting.
definitely. And we hope to keep in touch and kind of keep an idea on how you're progressing and ways to connect you with other people and that type of thing.
Sure, sure. Why not?
I have a question for you, man.
Yes.
Have you observed over the past years more interest in girls to pursuing either graduate or undergraduate university studies in science and technology in Pakistan?
What I have observed in my 4 years experience at my own university and at different schools is girls lack confidence. They hesitate, and there are a very few girls who take STEM degrees, but after their degrees, for some reasons, maybe because of their own, or maybe because of some society pressure, they do not pursue their career. They get married. They are unable to continue their studies for some reason. At the same time, we do have women who pursue their careers, who go to different countries for further education and training, but the number is pretty much low. So whenever I go to girls' campuses, uh, like I try them to give them enough confidence that like they can actually do experiments. They are literally hesitate to like just do a tiny experiment that, oh my god, what will happen if we did it wrong? And I try to be friends with them and tell them that it's okay if it's broken, and it's okay if they try and they fail. It's completely fine. We
No.
There is a lot to work on them right now. There is a lot to work on.
Thank you. That's very interesting, and well, I think that we still need to advance more worldwide in terms of having some sort of gender equality in professions. And
yes, we will do that.
For example, in the U.S., we've seen examples of many women that are astronauts and have been in space. So I think that that's a good example. Thank you.
Yes. That's
So if I may, I've got a suggestion for ways that you can get to access a telescope.
Mm-hmm.
It's online. It's called Micro Observatory Robotic Telescope Network, and if you can search for that, I believe it's with Harvard, and it's supposed to be able to allow you to control a space telescope or control a telescope.
From laptop or mobile phone, right? This is.
I'm sorry,
like
can't quite hear you.
Is it a website?
Yes, it's a website.
Okay, I got it. I will Google about it for sure.
Yeah, maybe if you have trouble finding it, if you send a note to Nathan, he can help.
Yes,
I can get the link to you.
Yes. Sure.
Well, good deal. I know we had a few people that had some things they wanted to share. So we're getting towards 4 o'clock. So maybe it's a good time. Vito, you want to talk about Cosmos?
Sure, I'll try to share my screen at the same time. Okay, screen sharing has been disabled.
Oh, I tell you what, I'll make you a co-host, and that will fix that right up for you.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Okay, oh wow. This would be it right here. Okay, can anybody see this?
Yes.
Okay, good. First of all, I'd like to say I really enjoyed Ms. Majid's presentation. It was awesome. The movie Cosmos was released in 2019 from the United Kingdom. and explores the thrilling first hours of first contacts when three astronauts, three astronomers accidentally intercept what they believe to be a faint coded signal from a distant alien civilization. I do not agree with the IMDb rating of 5.8 over 10. I'd rate it 7.5 over 10 because there was good acting and character development, great use of limited budget, and good effective suspension of reality. You'll see why at the end of the movie. But without giving too much away, I just wanted to provide some suspense before you watch it. In 1974, as you know, Arecibo sent out an interstellar radio message carrying basic information about humanity and Earth, a simple binary image including information of our solar system and DNA. And the movie follows through on this building up slowly and then becoming riveting toward the conclusion. It's worth seeing. I'm going to play the trailer and let's see if you can all hear it. Here we go. Can you hear it?
Yes.
So what are you going to do this evening? I don't know. I was thinking tonight might be my last night anyway. I will. Mike, it's great to finally meet you. Listen to space. That's what I do. You can see the universe a completely different way. You have to give up more of the secrets. What's going on? I think I found something. It's on a very thin frequency. It's like nothing I've ever seen. Mike, what is this? Dave, it's Mike Webster. We got a target signal here.
Stand by, but not hearing anything yet.
Well, then scan the band.
Look, Mike, I've checked. There's nothing.
He's the only one getting this. I don't see how that's possible. We can't ignore this. We got to stay with it. Okay, guys, separate the antennas and spread out. Mike, we're on station. I'm ready to copy. Let's do this. You have no idea. No idea what's going on here. We're getting some serious spikes here, guys. Hold your position, Roy. We're losing the signal. I'll help you if I can. It's really all on you. But you don't have a choice. You got to do something. It's the choice you make right now that counts. You make the right moves here, and you have in your hands the greatest discovery in the history of mankind. Hold on, we're going right.
I had to toss on the list of things to watch during these times.
Xander Weaver. I am the co-writer, director of Cosmos with my brother, Elliot. I'm Elliot Weaver, co-director of Cosmos. Okay, here we go. Cosmos came about because we were desperate to make movies, desperate to get going, starting our career as film directors. We left school, we wrote a film called Encounter.
Oh.
Budget for that in millions.
Thank you for sharing that, Vito.
Of industry professionals, we were close to raising the money for the film. But speaking to producers, understandably,
oops, I think the audio is still coming through.
Okay, it's gone.
Okay, cool. And Peter, you had an event that you were telling me about that's happening next weekend. Did you want to give that a shout out?
Because all they have to do is
thank you very much. And
that's a big part of the strategy.
Ms. Majid, it's really been a delight listening to you. And I will say that I think that what you have done for me is identify more clearly the universality of space from the standpoint of what human civilization should become, where the boundaries and borders, like the political differences that you have with India in Pakistan, or the effort to build up trouble between the United States and China that's going on right now, can be overcome if we develop a passion for the mission of colonizing space. It takes us all up to the level of being human beings in the universe instead of just creatures on this planet. So in that regard, next Saturday, we are going to have a discussion of what opportunities, what direction we have to go in space. And we're going to have 3 speakers. One's going to be talking about virology and astrovirology, inspired by the current COVID crisis. Then, what is the current status of fusion propulsion in terms of developing the technologies for interplanetary travel so that we don't have to depend on fuel tanks the size of the moon to get to Mars? And then the question of how the technological development coming out of this is going to have enormous impact on basic industries, especially if we have to think in terms of manufacturing things on the moon, if we're going to really get to Mars. You know, that's the kind of thing that is being posed. So if I can share my screen, I can just show the
sure.
schedule for that.
Let me make you a co-host. And now you should be able to share.
Okay.
And also I could, we'll send out the information about the Cosmos movie and about this event as well in a follow-up email, so people will get it.
Now, why can't I just click on this? You can probably see my whole thing there.
Can't see anything yet.
Oh, you can't see anything?
Mm-mm.
Oh, wait a minute. It says, I'm sorry. I see the button here. It says share. How about that? Can you see that?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay. So this is the webinar, and it's Saturday, next Saturday. It's going to be at 1 p.m. Central Daylight Time. It's going to be 2 p.m. at Eastern Daylight Time. This is a link to a series of videos on that we've done over the years on issues of space. And this is the button to RSVP so that we can send you the link for the webinar. So all you have to do is, let's see, this is where you could go right here. http action.baruchpack.com, and we can get you the information there. And then that telephone number as well, 832-990-7635.
That sounds good. And I could also send out, a link to this as well whenever we send out the notes on the meeting.
Yeah, that would be great, Nathan. And thank you so much for the opportunity to make a mention of it there. I appreciate that.
You bet. And Adam, I see we have you on the line. I was wondering if you care to share any news and kind of what your new job's like.
So I'm still in Houston, actually. I don't start at Blue Origin until July 20th, so there hasn't really been much new things. I've just been working on selling my house and finding a house there, and then working on relocating. So today's my last day in Houston. I'm driving at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning up to Alabama. And Blue Origin is really been hush-hush. They won't even tell me like what exactly I'll be doing, like what my job duties will be. It's just all generalized. So until I actually get onboarded, they basically won't disclose any information to me that's not already public. And like when I went on the house hunting trip, they wouldn't even let me stop by the facility. So it's just extremely, they're unlike SpaceX where they like basically say everything. Blue Origin's basically just hiding everything. So there's not too much to share at this point in time.
Wow, it's still very exciting to have you meet, be able to achieve your dream of getting a job in the aerospace sector. So hoping that inspire other people to go that direction too.
Yeah, and it really came down to I didn't think anything was gonna come of it, and I just kind of applied as a joke. And if I got it, that would be great. But I didn't expect to get an interview, yet alone all 6 interviews and all the long interview process that they go through.
That's awesome. I think we're right at time, so I'll go ahead and share out the media information about next week's meeting. Not next week's, but next month's. Gotta find the share button. There we are. Share. So hopefully you all can attend next month, August 1st. We're going to have Jennifer Lopez, who's the Director of Business Development from Astrobotic Technology, based in Pittsburgh. I'm using this time when we're meeting virtually, which I plan to meet the rest of the year virtually, to kind of bring people in who couldn't come to an in-person meeting. And I've talked to the people that we were planning to have come in an in-person meeting, and they're going to come after we start meeting again in person. So you may remember we had Intuitive Machines come and speak to us back in December. They and Astrobotic are both landing probes on the moon next year as part of NASA's Commercial Lunar Payload Services program. And so Jennifer Lopez is going to tell us about that program. Astrobotic also won the award to land the 2023 Viper rover at the South Pole. And they're also working with Dynetics to actually develop a human-rated lander. So that should be really awesome. And I hope all of y'all can come. I did also have a personal request. I am doing a project, and maybe I should stop sharing, show this out real quick. I am doing a personal project where I am interviewing a person every single day till the end of 2024. And it's at countdowntothemoon.org. So I've done over 220 interviews so far. And I have, it's counting down to the end of 2024. So I have 1,633 more to go. So if you're up to being interviewed, you can just click on interview me up in the upper right-hand corner, select the day that works for you. And I currently have everybody signed up for pretty much July, but there's lots of days in August. But I do actually need somebody to interview today. So if somebody can spare 15 to 30 minutes after this meeting, I would love to interview you for my project if any of you are up to that.
I could take 15 or 20 minutes and talk to you today, Nathan.
Oh, that's great.
Peter.
Well, excellent, Peter. Let me send you another Zoom link, and then we'll do that immediately after this. But anyway, I think this might be a good place to conclude the meeting. So thank you all for coming, and I look forward to seeing you all on August 1st.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nathan.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you all.
Bye.
There we go.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.